We'll start. The flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, we have Director Hofstad via online, and Director Russ Garretts is absent this meeting. So all other directors are here. Move to board chair comment. I did do roll call.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Director Hofstad, can you call so we can do a roll call
Director Bauman,
here?
Director Garretts, not present. Director Hackett,
Aye.
Director Hofstad here, Director Lang,
Here.
Director Roaring,
Here.
Board chair comment. I do have something Russ typed up. Hang with me. My voice is pretty much gone and I've got stuff in my throat. So if you hear me clearing it a lot, that's why. So, but this is from Director Garretts. Here's his board chair comments. At the January 24th, 2020 regular school board meeting, the Royalton School Board held a formative or mid-year review of Superintendent Werekamp. The formative review is held to ensure progress, provide feedback, and make changes to goals as needed. Superintendent Werekamp performed well against her 3 goals. Begin the process of refreshing the strategic plan, ensures curriculum is in place, aligned grade levels, and complies with state standards, and develops and supports open, productive, caring, and trusting relationships among staff. The board made no changes to the current goals and asked Superintendent Werekamp to continue reporting on progress. The second item he wanted me to share was, I would like to mention a correction that was brought to the board's attention. In the past board meetings, we have closed our meeting referencing the wrong Minnesota statute. We should have been closing using the Minnesota statute 13D.03. This statute is for labor negotiation strategies. We were mistakenly using Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3A. This statute should be referenced for closed meetings for the superintendent evaluation. We will be sure to reference the correct statute going forward. Approval of agenda.
So moved.
Second. Approval agenda. This motion was made by Director Hackett and seconded by Director Roaring. Director Hofstad, will you call roll?
Roger that. Director Bauman,
Aye.
Director Hackett,
Aye.
Director Hofstad, aye. Director Lang,
Aye.
Director Roaring,
Aye. Motion passes 5-0-0. Appreciation, recognition, and presentations. Let's go first.
Oh, I gotta move my phone because
Members of the board, Superintendent Werekamp, members of the public, good evening. I am going to take this opportunity to announce our students of the semester for first semester. These students, some of them were awarded at the senior high awards banquet on Tuesday, and some of them will be awarded tomorrow morning at the middle school awards banquet. The students of the semester in art was Kiana Hansen. In business, the junior high student was Madeline Roche. The senior high student was Joseph Aken. In tech ed, the senior high student of the semester was Isaiah Solars. A few of these departments didn't have middle school classes first semester, so they did not have a junior high student. Ag department, junior high student Evan Dyer, senior high student Aaron Pop. English department, the junior high student of the semester Emily Block, the senior high student of the semester Nicholas Leipold. The social studies department, junior high student of the semester Kimberly Grant, and the senior high student Ingrid Pop. The math department, the junior high student of the semester Landon Hackett, and the senior high student of the semester Autumn Shanerock. Science department, the junior high student of the semester Cody Bieniek, and the senior high student of the semester Paula Vallejo. Phi-Ed Health, junior high student was Ava Nemeth, the senior high student of the semester was James Campbell. In the music department, the junior high student of the semester Hayden Gronow, the senior high student of the semester Maria Soland. In Spanish, only senior high, so 9 through 12, is Brooklyn Geisy. And the Academic Achievement Award in senior high, Ashton Oldakowski. And in middle school, Wyatt Plumsky. Typically in the past, being named a student of the semester earns a trip to Valley Fair in June. We're not aware yet of the rules around Valley Fair yet of what's happening. So right now, these students have been awarded and given certificates at the honors breakfast, but I'd like to congratulate the junior and senior high students of the semester for first semester this school year.
Good evening. I'm here this evening to recognize Ashton Keith. He was our district spelling bee winner. He unfortunately is not here today. I know he had expected to, so I was hoping to present that award to him, but he correctly spelled the word refectory for the win. We had a bit of a battle at the end of our spelling bee, so it was really fun to go with a few students here at the end, but he really had an enthusiasm that I haven't seen for a while at a spelling bee. So it was really fun to watch him as he competed, and congratulations to him. He's going to represent our district at Sourcewell at the end of March. I believe it's the 23rd. So he will compete there. So congratulations to Ashton.
All right, recognition of citizens for input purposes, and we have Maria Tro.
I'm Maria Trout, as you know. I'm a parent of students in the Royalton School District. I come to share tonight because agenda item 10B, the curriculum review plan presentation, is a purposeful time to present this action item. I look forward to sharing as a way to contribute, enhance, and positively impact the students and the families that attend Royalton Public School. It's been discussed in previous board meetings, great concern over legal expenses surrounding public data requests. I'd like to present a solution to curb the need for potential future public data requests, inquiries surrounding repeat issues of concern by promoting transparency of educational practices. Many parents simply desire easily attainable and understandable access to the curriculum their children are being taught. I'm aware of policy 601 and 603, along with others, that would align well with my new proposed policy, transparency in school training and curriculum. For policy 208, I emailed this to superintendent prior to this board meeting. I've come tonight to introduce and begin the process of adoption of a transparency in school training and curriculum policy. The purpose of this policy would be to ensure public transparency in Royalton Public Schools instructional training and learning materials, and to give parents and students reasonable online access to review such materials. The general statement of policy is unlimited free online access to curricular materials or activities taught to students of Royalton Public School, knowledge of and access to resources, trainings, materials which school staff, teachers, administration, and faculty use to fulfill their duties at Royalton Public School. public knowledge of trainings, conferences, summits, continuing education credits, and other required within Royalton School District for each staff position. Transparency in training and curriculum. A governing body of Royalton Public Schools shall ensure that the following information is displayed on the school website in an easily accessible location. 1, all instructional or training materials or activities used for staff and faculty training on all matters of non-discrimination, social justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, culturally responsive pedagogy, race, ethnicity, sex, gender, or bias, and any combination of these concepts with other concepts. 2, all learning or curricular materials or activities used for student instruction on matters of non-discrimination, social justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, culturally responsive pedagogy, race, ethnicity, sex, gender, or bias, or any combination of these concepts with other concepts. Such display of materials or activities shall identify at a minimum the title, author, organization, and any website associated with each material and activity. A link to the learning material if publicly available on the internet, or if not freely and publicly available, a brief description of the learning material and information on how to request review a copy of the learning material. And if the learning material was created for non-public use, the identity of the teacher, staff member, school official, or outside presenter who created it, such as the identification, may be indicated by a personal title and the last initial if referring to a teacher, staff member, or school official. Any procedures for the documentation, review, or approval of the training, learning, or curricular material used for staff and faculty training or student instruction at the school, including by the principal, superintendent, curriculum administrators, contracted agencies, or other teachers. For the purpose of this section, learning materials include, but are not limited to, the following: all textbooks, reading materials, videos, activities, digital materials, websites, and other online applications. Used for student instruction means assigned, distributed, or otherwise presented to students in any course for which students receive academic credit, or in any educational capacity in which participation of the student body is required by the school, or in which a majority of the students in a given grade level participate. It applies also to any materials from among which students are required to select one or more if the available selection is restricted to specific titles. Original materials means learning materials owned or licensed by the school district, school, facility, faculty, or staff that are used for student instruction. And activities include, but are not limited to, assemblies, guest lectures, and other educational events facilitated by Royalton Public Schools faculty or staff, including those conducted by outside individuals or organizations, excluding student presentations. The information required by subsection A of this section shall be displayed online prior to the first instance of training or instruction, or at least 7 days after the training or instruction. Such information shall be organized by school, grade, teacher, and subject and remain displayed on the school website for at least 2 years. For privacy purposes, teachers and staff employed by the school may request that a school use a personal title and a last initial in lieu of a full name. The date of the latest modification or update to such information shall be displayed on the same website location. The listing of materials and activities pursuant of subsection A shall be created and displayed in searchable or sortable electronic formats. I greatly appreciate your time. I just have one quick question before I finish. Who will respond to me as follow-up after this meeting as to what the next steps would be after proposing a new policy? I don't know exactly what the process is, and I don't know who to expect follow-up from.
So it'll either be Director Garrett's or Christine.
Okay.
One of the two will respond. Do know he's on vacation, so I'm not exactly sure on what date he comes back, but
Sure.
I would maybe guess a week vacation, but
Sure.
one of the two or both will get back to you.
Okay, excellent. I do have a printed copy. Would you prefer to have a copy of it?
Is it the same as electronic that we got though?
Possibly. I sent the electronic one
Thank
too.
I got,
So you have a
but Mary, do you have a copy?
She likes.
She wants a copy.
She likes.
She likes paper.
I love paper. I'm sorry. I like to see it in tree, but I find a lot of them. So.
Thank you.
May I ask another question, Mrs. Stroud?
Yeah.
Did you accumulate this, or was this presented to you from some other organization caption?
This is previously comprised,
So you just
yeah,
took this off of someone else?
yeah, someone else is using this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
using this, okay, because some will apply, some's gonna be a little bit.
Right.
Oh, I mean, over the moon, because we just maybe don't deal with it yet.
Right.
I'm on the
yeah.
policy committee too, so we'll
Sure.
take a very hard look at this, all right?
Right, yeah, the
Yeah.
spirit is launching.
Right,
Was-
okay.
When you took it off of, wherever you took it off, was there a list of legal statutes?
No, it was
There
a,
wasn't.
it was a law.
Yeah, I just want, because a lot of policy have, when it happens with policies, it gets tested in the courts.
Sure.
So then there's legal statutes that it goes against. And that's a lot of the changes that happen in policy committee is because of court orders that have happened that have challenged the policies. I was just wondering if there was a list of challenges or not.
There was no statute references.
What I'm really interested in is not costing the district so much money to do the research for some of the requested information, because that just doesn't seem fair. This seems like a better idea. And, you know, and I didn't really realize that there isn't transparency. See, I'm an old mom, all right? And when I was here, when I had questions about curriculum or what was being taught in the classroom, I went in and sat in that classroom. And I watched what was going on. And that's a really good thing to do, because one, it scares the kids out of their minds, because why is your mom here, you know? But the other thing is too, you actually see how this is working and what's going on. I mean, I agree with you. I think maybe a website would be a whole better idea, just to say, hey, if I need to look at this or this, you know, I don't think that's a bad idea. But I'm not sure that we can't do we have to do some footwork as parents. I think, I really do. And I really appreciate your input. In fact, all of you, I do, because I know you're very vested in your children. And so was I. And they're all doing just fine. So it's a good thing. But I think there are other ways of doing things that are just as, I think, impactful. I think they make a huge impact. When you ask the teacher, may I sit in the classroom? And, you know, if you do it a couple times, then they get used to you and you really see how it looks. And that's a good thing for you and for your students. So just, you know, just my experience, but I'm just one guy.
Right, yeah. Lots of history being very active on here. Not so much it was in the previous district.
Sure, good, yeah, good, that's great. And so you wouldn't be afraid to do that.
Oh, gosh, no.
And see, I think that's part of it, is I think that we are more welcoming than people realize, especially in small districts. Maybe in the cities they're not, but here, we're not gonna shoot you, okay? All right, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other recognition of citizens for input purposes? Anybody else? No? All right, we'll move on to report and news. We are going to start with the business manager report.
Perfect. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. I don't know if Christine won a competition, but it looks like graffiti's on the floor, like graffiti just like shot off in a cannon or something from my angle here. But maybe they're just tickets on the ground there. I don't know, but it looks kind of cool. So Michelle, am I just going to share my screen, or are you going to run the?
Yeah, will you
Okay.
share yours?
Yep, the sharing is disabled though.
Oh, David's gonna fix it.
Okay. And I do apologize, but I am double booked tonight for a board meeting, so I'll give this update and then I'm gonna run to another board meeting really quick, but I'll be back before the end of our board meeting. All right, I can share now. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So the January budget update for Royalton, I will go through these slides, but the enrollment, original adopted budget was at 920. And through the collection points that I get from Amy Kruger, we have stayed steady at 922 throughout the school year, or FY22. So for the adopted budget, I was just using the FY21 data. And then scrolling on to revenues, I'll go by this rather quickly because I just point out what I want you guys to pay attention to, but then the next slide, I just go over the notes. But the biggest thing is that we are only 52,468 behind where we were this time last year. If you guys remember in the December update, we were 453,000 behind at that time. And a lot of that was because of the federal draws. So I mentioned in the last board meeting that, or I had Todd actually mention the last board meeting that we have done a lot of federal draws and cleanup, as there wasn't a lot of federal draws at that point. So that gave us a nice jump for the month of January. So for the most part, we are caught up, just have some CARES funding that we need to update as well. And then expenditures, same thing. I'm going to, here's the data, but I go on to the next slide and talking about the different bullet points that I guys want you to pay attention to as a board. So we're 641,000 ahead of where we were this time last year. A lot of that has to do with regular education costs up due to COVID. Extracurricular activities back to pre-COVID levels. It's actually an increase of 110,000 from prior COVID year. That just kind of goes to show like how often or how much we wanted to get back out and get back to the real world again. Hopefully sooner and later we'll be there, permanently, but and also due to CARES funding being spent for one-time expenditures for the betterment of the students. And I do have a CARES update for you guys tonight as well. But just a few notes before I dive into that. But now that the title has been cleaned up, my efforts will be going into shifting to the CARES so we can do some journal entries and cross-reference any coding that we need to do, and then we could do the draws for that. We do have a big date coming up on March 15th that draws will be due for a certain time period, and I'll go ahead and get those in before then. So hopefully this will work, but it came over on my other screen. So providing you guys and the board an update for CARES as of January 31st, 2022. Hopefully this all shows up, but if you guys remember, we went through this slide a couple months ago and just going through the who, the how much, when, and where for the 150, 155, 160, all the different FIN codes that MD has us go through. But just a quick reference on that. If you guys ever need this access, I shared it with the board, but it tells you where we have to spend these funds according to MDE. They kind of hold our hand or tie our hands as to where we can spend these funds. But I did add a new column, so showing you how much has been spent through 1/31/2022. Again, a lot of this, I want to reiterate that I needed to do some journal entries so we can start drawing some of these funds. All right, so FIN 155 is the first one that we've had, but we have spent 189,000 on that. But you can see where we have spent that in that where column. And then once we get done with 155, we'll move on to 160. And we do have some costs allocated to that already that we need to put in. And let me go on to the next slide. And then FIN 161, 169, 170, 171. 170 is definitely one that we can go ahead and put through, the COVID coordinator. We can use their salary there, or nursing salaries we can put into that. But those will be the next steps in doing our federal draws. But other than that, that's pretty much it for my update. Let me jump back to my presentation and then my final slide. Any questions from the board? I know I went through that quickly, but like I said, I need to jump over to another meeting, but I wanted to allow enough time for any questions.
Did I hear you say that there were nursing costs that we could include in this now?
Nursing costs, we can. I mean, throughout the districts that I work with,
Okay.
they may have a full-time nurse on staff, or I can't remember. We do, right, Christine?
Yes.
Do we have?
So what we've done there, Mary, is we've already budgeted to have a portion of the COVID coordinator dollars and a portion of the nurses dollars, because that's all around testing. So when they required weekly testing, those expenses for the tests themselves and for the staff time can be budgeted there. We were allocated $40,000.
Great, that's great.
So we've got
Thank
that
you.
all set.
That's really good news. Thank you.
Any other questions? think we're good. Thank you, Scott.
Yep, thank you. And I'll see you guys in a bit here.
Let's move to the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee Annual Compliance Report. That is a mouthful.
It's funny, we don't have one of them acronyms for that.
APAC.
Okay,
There we
have one. Sorry.
Good evening, my name is Samantha Ward and I am the chair of the APAC committee, or the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee. I am here to go over the resolution that the committee has decided on and voted for in regards to this committee. So I will just share with you the long list of information that I'm supposed to read. Whereas the school board or district has an APAC composed of parents, guardians of American Indian children who are eligible for Indian education programs, American Indian language and culture teachers and paraprofessionals, American Indian teachers, American Indian counselors, American Indian adults enrolled in educational programming, and American Indian representatives from the community. Whereas the school board or district affords the APAC the necessary information and the opportunity to effectively express their views concerning all aspects of American Indian education and the educational needs of the American Indian children enrolled in the schools and programs. And whereas the APAC is directly involved with and advises the school board and district staff on Indian education program planning, and whereas the APAC develops and submits recommendations to the school board and district staff pertaining to the needs of American Indian students. Therefore, be it resolved that the APAC concurs that the school board and district are compliant with Minnesota statute section 124D.78, and that the school board and district are meeting the needs of American Indian students. We, the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee, issue a vote of concurrence. We attest that the school board and or district are compliant with the Minnesota statutes, and that the school board and or districts are meeting the needs of American Indian students.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you for heading it up and everybody else that volunteered to be on it. Board committee reports. Finance committee.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Finance committee met earlier in February. Essentially just went over what Scott did today, so I won't read that. But the big one is we'd like to change our meetings to the third Tuesday of each month instead of the second Tuesday. That gives them most up-to-date information. They need at least 10 days out to close the previous month, so they're just running into some time shortages. So we're going to propose to move it to the third Tuesday of each month moving forward.
Mid-State is in the process of looking for a new director, and also there have been, again, some changes in the people on staff. I'm not aware of exactly what those changes have meant. And we'll be meeting on the 14th, so I'll know by then. May I ask, Christine, when did you meet with the superintendents and with Simone?
The superintendents met just last week. Simone was not present at that meeting.
Okay.
And just discussing that, we were hoping you would meet sooner than later to
Well,
get that
she said you were
position.
supposed to meet Tuesday, is that on?
Well,
your-
they have the regular meetings tomorrow. I'll be at the honors
Yes,
breakfast.
that's right.
Right,
Okay,
but they'll have their regular meeting then.
okay, all right, we'll see what happens from there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other board committee reports?
I didn't make the policy meeting, so.
I did.
Did you find out?
Yeah, we got a few things on hold right now, and then we were pretty well kind of encumbered with a few of them, so we just decided we're gonna look at it again, and then take a little more time to go through them. Policies are really complicated sometimes, and so that's why we have to really take a good look at it, to make sure they're meeting the needs of our children and certainly our community. So they're a little trickier and there's a lot of work involved.
Any other board committee report? Superintendent report?
So I just have a few updates here to give. First of all, I'd like to say that we had our paraprofessionals week in January 24th through the 28th, so right after our board meeting that began. And then the National School Counselors Week was February 7th through the 11th. School Bus Driver Appreciation Day was February 23rd. And this is, we had school board member recognition week last week, the 21st to the 25th. So I do have certificates for all of you board members, and I appreciate so much your efforts that you put forward in commitment to this. I know it's time and not always a lot of hard work.
Was that?
We have lots of chocolate. And then also just another relatively quick update is it is legislative season. And so, as you know, members of the Senate and House are meeting in committee hearings, listening to new bills. The different education organizations out there are really pushing hard this year for them to finally, once and for all, rectify the special education cross subsidy issue that's been an issue in the state, probably across the nation for years and years and years. I can tell you that for fiscal year 2020, in this district, our cross subsidy is $404,846. So general fund dollars of $404,000 were being used to offset the cost of special education services mandated by both federal and state governments that they do not fund through the special education funding mechanism. So we're asking for them to finally correct that. We are projecting for fiscal year 2021, and the reason you're getting these dates behind is that's how special education funding works through that process. It always is about a 2-year lag. So we're looking at an estimated $545,000 cross subsidy for fiscal year 21. So we are going to our legislators saying, you have to correct this once and for all.
I think my first year as a board member was $8,000, and I thought it was unbelievable.
And it just keeps going on.
At
every
a
year.
faster and faster pace.
Yeah, and more requirements.
Yeah.
More requirements.
More requirements
They
every
have
year,
much
I know,
more
I know.
special
Unfunded
needs than
mandates,
they've had
yeah.
before, so.
And so, well, and they're unfunded mandates too. So the amount of paperwork that goes in and the staff time that goes in, and then that takes away from actual direct instruction, and it's not fair to our students. So we're going to ask for them to finally correct that. Also, when it comes to how the funding formula works, they have never tied the general education funding formula to inflation. So what happens is you hear, oh, districts are getting a 2 and 2 on the formula, 2 this year, 2 next year. What happens is it's only on about a half of what your funding streams are. So you end up getting about half that, and it's not linked to inflation. So if inflation is 3%, you're still in a situation where you don't have enough. So we're asking for them to rectify that. I've actually been asking for that for the entire time I've been in education. It hasn't happened yet, but we're still working on that. So also some equalization issues. We're in a district where we do not have a lot of commercial businesses like other districts. So we have to have any sort of bonding bill, what have you, and go to our taxpayer. They're going to pay more than what a district with large commercial organizations would have to pay for their residents. So we're looking for equalization so that the taxpayer has some tax paying relief on that. So it goes beyond, they've done a lot of that with the eggs and the farmers, but they haven't done enough for the person that's living in town. Correct, like ours. So just letting you know that those things are happening. We're advocating with legislators, asking for their help with this. I can also tell you that I just learned today that the surplus that was 7.7 billion is up to 9.2 billion in our state. So there's extra money out there that they weren't anticipating. What they intend to do with that, I don't know, but we will be asking for them to fix some of these funding flaws in public education. And then lastly, as you know, we have a work session on March 14th. And so we are moving our choir concert to March 21st so that it doesn't conflict with our board meeting and we can attend. So just letting you know about that particular update. And that's all I have unless you have questions.
Got a question? Sure. Gonna meet with those representatives and senators or not?
Yes, so we will be down several from Region 5 will be down at the end of March. If you'd like to attend, I can give you that information. Great, and we'll go down with, we're gonna have a schedule, so we have our legislators scheduled on a calendar. It's hard to get to them sometimes if you don't do that in
We
advance.
should call Alba is if he wants to go with us again. He gets us into a lot of rooms that we wouldn't get into otherwise. It's all about who you know down there.
I know, that's why it's almost better to know the LAs. And the person I used to work with, I used to always bring them candy. Here, get me. Oh, so, okay. That question.
Principal report.
Members of the board and Dr. Werkamp. As you're aware, we do have a new reading program this year, English Language Arts, Reading Benchmark Advanced. So the first half of the year, we've spent 3 full days, consultants working with teachers, learning how to use that program most effectively. It's really a challenging program. We've made really good progress. So the last part of the year, starting today, we're working at integrating the state standards with the reading program. So the reading program is seen as a resource to help us achieve or meet the state standards. And that entails developing learning targets, which are clear learning goals for each unit and each lesson. A pacing calendar, meaning if I'm in the first grade, and I have 3 partners, all 3 of us are teaching the same material basically on the same day and supporting each other. That way, so we have pacing calendar across the grade levels and then vertically also. And we're working at developing proficiency scales, which means a proficiency scale would typically be numbered 1 through 4. And number 3 would be the state standard for that particular unit. So that would be a statement put in words the students can understand of what they're trying to achieve. So level 1 would be the steps, the things you need to learn to be able to achieve it, number 3, same with level 2. So they would be spelled out. And the idea is clarity for the teacher, but also for the student to see, if I want to achieve this standard, here are the skills I need to get good at to achieve the standard. And then there's a level 4, once I've met the standard, there's an enrichment kind of activity or challenge so that I can go beyond the standard. So to be able to do that, which each priority standard in units in the reading program, it takes some work. So we had to pick a picture at the end of the day. We got in a big circle, and with the pick a picture that you said how you felt during the day. Mine was someone hang gliding. I said, well, we really aren't soaring yet, but we are off the ground. We are moving. And that will be our focus to get through all the components of English language arts, at least next year, possibly into the year after. It's a very similar process that we use to finish our math standards work. And that is on the website for the public to see that. And as soon as we get things going with English language arts, in a similar way, we're going to put that on the website. So we should have some things up certainly by the end of this year, not fully, but to show the work that we have done together. And I want to compliment the teachers. They really worked hard. They got together and they got focused. You know, initially it's a little bit a feeling of being overwhelmed, how to get started on it, but felt really good about the progress we made. And we had each grade level report out how they felt they were doing. Good reports coming back, and our special ed teachers are participating, Title I, and also our special. So PE, music, art, and Spanish are doing the same process for the subjects that they teach. So it's a big challenge, but as you start getting into it, it feels very meaningful. That you're not only doing it for yourselves and the students and the parents, but also for the teachers and the students that come after you. So if a new teacher comes in, there's a pretty good structure in place to guide your instruction. And most groups work their best when the parts are working harmoniously together. So that's the goal. So I feel very positive about it. If you get a chance to talk to any of the teachers, please do and give me feedback, because I'd like to hear what they're saying, but we try to have that kind of interaction.
I have a question.
Yeah,
So as you go on, is there time that's given for like maintenance on these goals that we can go back and reflect on? You know, we need to change this, or, you know, we need to spend more, you know, the calendar and stuff. I mean, after a year or two, do they get a chance to go back and reflect on, or is that a continual thing that they're just doing all the time then, or?
yeah. If it's done well, it's done in an ongoing, continuous way. Meaning that once a lesson's been taught by a grade level, then there's time to look at how did that lesson go? Did it go as planned? We have to adjust something in our unit planning or learning targets. So that's the ideal, and the challenge is the time to do those things. But it's certainly what we're asking people to do and trying to build into our way of doing things. And thank you for your question, because if we're not doing that, we're really not getting the fullest out of the process in any way. You just kind of,
Well,
then
yeah,
you can get
because
into another kind of
You
rut.
can't get complacent, because otherwise you're just gonna end up in 5 years in the same place you were. But it seems like every time, sometimes I think every time we turn around, we're asking for more.
Right.
So
It's right.
it, you know, it is what it is. So
Yes, excellent observations. There's just a good article in the Tribune by two teachers exactly on that topic. It's called Teacher Burnout, and the things being asked of teachers, how they're struggling to keep up. So we're trying to manage that also, give some time for.
But there's synergies that happen though too. I mean, with the team building, and they can bounce ideas off each other if they're in the same places. That stuff has to help with that too. So it's not just the ask for more. It's, we have to also take pride in the things that are positive that are happening too. So
Yes, and the synergy of working as a team, we cannot do what we're doing without that.
Right.
Joel and I, as principals, over the last 4 years, we've learned a lot together, starting with, this is quite a ways back, but starting with an all-district workshop on the art and science of teaching. But we've probably read 3 books, really learning about what we're trying to help the staff with. And you don't really start learning until you start doing, in a sense. And we begin seeing what works, what doesn't work. And it's very satisfying when you see it starting to work. Because for us also, it's like, how's this actually going to play out with limited time? And
that's how
just
all
the
theories
overwhelming nature
work.
of it.
You read them and they go in your head one way until you try to do it, and then you look or you read it again and you're like, well, that's what they meant. I read it, but I didn't understand it. So yeah, I get it.
And to give people a chance to work in a team, there's some good intelligence in the group. And they start being creative and problem solving, and yet keeping it unified. So thank you. We have parent teacher conferences coming up on Thursday of this week, and then Monday in the evenings, 4:15 to 8 o'clock. We have a 6-member PBIS team, and they are going to their last training this Thursday in Sartell. So that's all about supporting student behavior. And Aaron Meyer has been working very hard on Jump Rope for Heart. And he usually, not he, but the community and the students usually raise $8,000 to $10,000. So he said if they get to 10,000, then he's dyeing his hair a bunch of colors. Once I think he dressed up as a chicken or something.
Yeah.
So he acts like he doesn't like doing that, but he likes.
Work camp for and the board. Just a quick update from the high school. Tonight is our final night of conferences for student-led conferences. We had conferences Thursday night from 5 to 8:30. And then we had conferences today from 1 to 4, and again, 5 to 8:30. Student-led conferences is a concept we began about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Our average conference attendance rate starts in the fall at around 35 to 40%. Parent attendance, and by the spring is usually around 25%. Our student-led conferences are scheduled with the student's advisor. It is meant to be a different type of conference. Research shows that a student-led conference has a effect on student achievement. It creates some ownership in the student. How many times have you gone to a parent-teacher conference, or you were the student and remember going to parent-teacher conference? My mom wouldn't even let me go to parent-teacher conferences. But when you'd go to parent-teacher conferences and the student sits there and the parent and teacher talk, and the student is a passive observer of the thing that they are most responsible for. And so we aim to change that with student-led conferences, where we provide the platform for students to present their own academic achievement to their parents. It's not a traditional conference. It's not how are you doing and you're missing 4 assignments here and you didn't do well on this test. It is more about how did you achieve it. The student presents to their parents how they achieved. They set a goal for the next semester academically for themselves, of what area could they work harder in, what area do they need more help in. We try to get even 6th graders, but also in our senior high, kind of what they're thinking of post-secondary wise. What are you thinking about after high school? I've always said everyone's always cute when you ask a 2nd grader what he wants to be in. I want to be a forest ranger, and everyone, oh, that's so cute. And and then when you get to 6th grade, the reaction is, well, God, they're too young to be asking them about what they want to do. Well, that is the exact time to ask them what they want to do, to think about it. What do they envision for themselves out down the road? We're not asking them to pick out a profession right now and stick to it for a lifetime, but we are asking them, hey, are you interested in do you like working with people? Do you like working with animals? Do you like working with your hands? Do you like working outside versus inside? And you start getting some of those ideas in place, and students start developing an idea that over the course of time throughout high school, they refine that to an idea where when they get to their senior year, they have a pretty good idea. They have a pretty good idea of what direction they want to go. It might be different. It might be nursing one year. It might be sales. It might be, but the common pattern is, I really want to work with people. Okay. So now you start tailoring their opportunities to match their interests and career desires. So the student-led conference does that. Our attendance rate for student-led conferences over the past 5 years has been over 70%. It has been over 80. If you take seniors out, seniors don't attend these very well. We're going to be working on some new ideas with seniors, but our seniors kind of have this down. They've made their college decision already. They have some of that. But when you take the seniors out, it's over 75, 80%. Some of our middle school grades are 100% attendance at student-led conferences. And so it's a good opportunity. It's a different feel of a conference. And I didn't know how it was going to go when we started it. And we've received very positive comments from parents that they really thought it was really kind of a nice opportunity for them to facilitate a conversation that they might not typically get a chance to have. So excited about student-led conferences. We're also doing pre-registration for next year's schedule in grades 9 through 12. We work with the students and parents. One of the comments a few years ago was parents wanted to have more of an idea of what their kids were going to take. And so the pre-registration nights facilitates that conversation where parents and students sit down and we work with them through a potential schedule that they will schedule for and register for the spring. So that is my report. Any questions?
What if you have a student though that isn't doing well academically? How do you make that student feel okay about a student-led conference?
The nice part about our student-led conferences is they're scheduled. So they schedule it, and we do leave some open time for parents if they do want to pop around, and I really got to talk to the math teacher. They can still do that. So they can still receive that support. And to be honest, at any level, I've always encouraged parents that you can really conference with a teacher anytime that you have a question. I encourage that. Ask a question, make a phone call, shoot off an email, request a meeting. Those are all things that.
I think that's really important thing, because that's building that bridge, truly. So the kid doesn't feel like they're in the school and nobody really cares. I think that's really building a bridge. And I like student-led conferences. I've been reading a little bit about that. It does seem to be very beneficial in the sense that it does say, hey, atta girl, atta boy, you're doing a good job. It also gives kids a voice. Love time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Athletic director.
Members of the board, Superintendent Report, talking about athletics and activities and giving an update on those. One act play competed way back in sections in January, and they're all wrapped up. We've got speech going about every Saturday to some place around the area. And then so Miss Menden is the advisor for that, so she takes a school van and she's able to travel around and do those things. We've got Knowledge Bowl. They're starting to wrap up and they're doing their regionals. Some of it's up in Brainerd. We've got band. Band is going to Foley tomorrow for their large group contest, so it'll be gone a portion of the day. Choir is going to do solo ensemble and large group here with a judge. The region gave it up to the groups if they wanted to travel to another school, if that would allow it, or they could do it in-house. So they're going to choose to do it in-house. We've got an upcoming band concert on the 7th. Okay, so that's Monday. And then 2 weeks later, we've got that choir concert. Let's see here. BPA is ramping up for their state competition. We had 16 individuals qualify at regionals over in Alexandria, and they're competing at the state meet next Thursday, Friday, and then awards will be on Saturday. So they'll be traveling down for that. Athletics wise, we're winding down and getting into section play. Boys have their final regular season game in Eden Valley Watkins tomorrow. And then their seeding will be the following Sunday. Girls basketball, they received their seeding yesterday. They are a 10 seed. They're playing the 7 seed Spectrum High School in Elk River, or not Elk River. That'll be a 7 p.m. game on Thursday. And then if we win that one, we'll play Saturday at St. John's at 5:30. Wrestling qualified for the team state tournament 2 weekends ago. We were the #1 seed. We first 2 rounds weren't terribly close. Holding Ford beat Long Prairie Gray Eagle Browerville, who's been a perennial powerhouse in our class for quite some time. So Holding Ford beat them in an emotional match. Holding Ford won on criteria, and then we wrestled Holding Ford and we beat them by 17, 40 to 23. So we qualified for the state meets. We are the #3 seed. They seed the top 5 and then draw the other 3. We will wrestle this Thursday at the Excel Energy Center at 11 a.m. against UNC, that's Monaga-Sabika School Districts. If we win that, we'll likely wrestle BVE, who we wrestled once before, and it's going to be a very, very, very good match. And then how we do is dependent, or when we wrestle next is how dependent on how we do. If we win 2, we wrestle at 7 p.m. for the state championship. We go 1-1, we can wrestle for 3rd, depending on how things go, or 5th. So Thursday is going to be a very, very big day. We are providing a fan bus. That took some time to get organized, but there's going to be a sign up in the high school office tomorrow. So that'll happen. Kids will go down, watch some wrestling. Others that choose not to ride the fan bus, they'll go down with their families or on their own. They're gonna have to come find myself, Mr. Swenson, and Dr. Werekamp. We've got tickets to hand out to them so that the parent calls and excuses them from school. They get a ticket from one of us three, they bring it back to school, and now it's an exempted absence. So there's that option for them as well. Individual sections was last Friday in Cass Lake Vena High School. We qualified 8 individuals, which is a program record. 106, 126, 132, 152, 170, 182, 220, and heavyweight. So it was a fantastic day for the program, for the coaches. Very, very proud of the boys for competing. And that tournament will happen on Friday and Saturday at the Excel Energy Center. So that is coming up really quickly. They will stream it. PrepSpotlight.tv will stream the event. It's a pay-per-view type of a thing. You can buy a 3-day pass or 1 day or whatnot, but so those options are available. So on Wednesday, we'll just kind of give a little bit about Wednesday, so that's gonna be a really, really busy day. Wednesday morning at 8:30, we're gonna load up the bus here, and Kevin Press will drive us over to Uppsala. We'll do their send-off. We'll get back on the bus. We'll come to the elementary and do our walk through there, come back to the high school, walk to the ECC, and then the team will have their last very, very light practice. Get ready, get packed up. We'll do a walkthrough at the high school about 11:40, and then we'll do a walkthrough around the school. We'll load up the bus at noon and then head down and get settled in the cities in St. Paul. So that's kind of what we've got going on. Very, very busy. So Thursday is a really, really heavy day with not only girls basketball competing for their section, but also the state tournament for wrestling. And then we've also got Math Masters is going up to Staples. So Thursday is a really, really busy day for us. Yeah, we're just excited about end of February, beginning of March is some good time.
Do you notice how easily he rattled off those weights?
Oh,
Yeah, Johnny gets this way. That's my go-to in wrestling.
Any questions?
Good luck to all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should be fun.
It should be, sounds like it is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have the consent agenda approval. So the board is consenting to approve items listed below as presented at one time. At any point, a director can pull an item off the consent agenda for further discussion.
I'll move the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Approval of all items on the consent agenda, which include approval of regular board meeting minutes, claims, accounts, and financial, approval of resignations, approval of new hires, approval of FMLA, approval of Marco copier contract, and approval of special education resolution addressing SPED cross subsidy. Motion was introduced by Director Hackett, seconded by Director Lane. Director Hofstad, can you call roll?
Director Bauman,
Aye.
Director Hackett,
Aye.
Director Hofstad, aye. Director Lang,
Aye.
Director Roaring,
Aye. Motion passes 5-0-0. Move on to number 10, discussion, information, and action items. Approval of donations by resolution. Maybe this first. And then approval of donations by resolution. Whereas all information is included in your packet, St. Cloud Area Golden Gloves Boxing has generously offered to donate $1,300 to help Miss Bishop's classroom wish list for the GTE services. And the Black Bod Giving Fund, established by Medtronic, has generously donated $500 to support program needs at the elementary school.
Need a
Mhm.
motion? Okay, I'll make the motion.
Member Lake introduced the following resolution and moved its adoption. Whereas all information is included in your packet, St. Cloud Area Golden Gloves Boxing has generously offered to donate 1,300 to help Miss Bishop's class wish list for the GTE services. The Black Bud Giving Fund established by Medtronic has generously donated $500 to support program needs at the elementary school. Whereas the conditions on this gift are included in the packet, therefore be it resolved by the Royalton School Board to gratefully accept the gift. The motion for adoption and foregoing resolution was duly seconded by member
Hackett,
Hackett. And upon a roll call vote being taken thereon, the following voted. Director Hofstad, can you call roll?
Director Bauman,
Aye.
Director Hackett,
aye.
Director Hofstad, aye. Director Lang,
Aye.
Director Roaring.
Aye. Who voted yes? Okay. Foregoing resolution was approved this 28th day of February 2022. And thank you for the donations. On to letter B, EPA request for nationals.
Members of the board, Superintendent Werkamp, this is brought up for VPA's request to potentially go to the national conference in Dallas, Texas. The reason why we're bringing it up now is the state competition is in a week, and registration has to happen before our next board meeting. So mid to end of March is when they have to know if they're going to be able and can go. So we want to be able to have approval from you to travel out of state for that. Now, the national conference isn't it is in Dallas, Texas, isn't until May, but it gives us time to organize and whatnot. So what was provided to you all was information regarding probably the most common items that would be requested: finances, what's covered by the district, what's covered by the families. In the past, what's been covered by the district has been hotel and registration, and then a reimbursement for food, and then what's covered by families, transportation, and other costs there. Do you have questions? No questions.
I'm assuming everybody has been vaccinated and all that happy stuff in order to get on a plane. If they have that.
I don't
That's
know.
a lousy assumption.
I don't think you have to be vaccinated.
Not for a domestic flight, I don't think so.
Okay, I don't know. I just
Oh,
want
yeah,
to
no,
make sure
you don't have to.
Not
everybody's
for a domestic flight.
copacetic.
No.
All right.
No.
Everybody's prepared. I don't want some.
Yep.
You know, wrestler going, I can't go, well,
Right.
that would be sad. So I just want to make sure that that is addressed somewhere
Yep.
down the road. Okay.
Yeah, the advisor Berg, Stephanie Berg and I chatted about what's the best course of action. Should we be able to be approved by the board to go and drive or fly? And there's so many other variable costs that are associated with driving 1,000 miles one way, a 16-hour car ride, that I didn't feel was worth the headache of trying to do that for anybody. So
How many students would this impact?
we've never had any more than 5 ever at one time go. So, looking at,
And that's if they win.
they've got to
So
be,
there's
they've
a
got
lot
to
of ifs
qualify
in
next
there.
week.
Okay.
Yep.
Just need this approval so that when, and if,
Mhm.
and when they win.
When they-
we have more Positive. Yeah.
And you can qualify, choose not to go. I mean, you can place in the top, whatever the slot limit is.
Criteria is, okay.
And you can say, well, I'm sorry, I'm busy, I'm in baseball, we got big games, I can't go. But they qualify at the state limit, so there's that possibility as well. But we just want to leave the door open for kids that have things as we haven't gone in quite some time.
And they're properly chaperoned and all that
Mhm.
good stuff, right?
Yep.
Okay.
What account does this come out of then? How does that work? I see just the breakdown of.
It come out of activities, but it's kind of,
The general.
yeah, but not, I don't know if it'd be so
Student
much
activities.
student activities.
Right.
Yeah, some would come out of the student activities account.
So it's not something they had to fundraise for, it's just our student activities.
No, I mean, student activities, there's stipulations with student activity accounts with what and how much you can use. In the past, it was you can fundraise for yourself and you can get this huge pot of money. I know when I went on the band trip, when I was a senior, you could raise $3,000, well, the trip was $1,200, they cut you a check for $2,800 back. You can't do that anymore. When it goes into the student activity account, it's the groups. So what's broken down there is an equitable use of funds out of there. There's what, 26, 22-ish kids involved in BPA. And there's like X amount of dollars in there. It's divided out so that it's equitable.
I see.
And the breakdown too, we can use some Perkins dollars to offset the costs of studying. We can use, the students are accountable for some of the dollars. Yeah.
And just like wrestling, there's some costs associated that you can't, it's hard to plan for something like this. You know, when wrestling goes to state tournament, or we went on a state tournament, we qualified 16 for BPA. It's hard to plan for depending on your clientele in the year and all that.
I will make the motion to approve. Motion to approve travel to Dallas, Texas with BPA students qualifying for BPA Nationals. Motion was made by Director Bauman, seconded by Director Lane. Director Hofstad, will you call roll?
Director Bauman,
Aye.
Director Hackett,
Aye.
Director Hofstad, aye. Director Lang,
Aye.
Director Roaring,
Passes 5-0-0. Next, we have network administrator / technology specialist contract.
I'd like to make a motion to accept that contract.
I'll second it.
Motion to approve network administrator / technology special contract. Motion was made by board member Lang and seconded by board member Hackett. Dr. Hofstad, will you call roll?
Director Bauman,
Aye.
Director Hackett,
Aye.
Director Hofstad, aye. Director Lang,
Aye.
Director Roaring,
Aye. Motion passes 5-0-0. Next year's school calendar, 2022-2023.
Calendar presentation for the school calendar. Calendar development process. We start looking at a potential school calendar. You can see the timelines in the parentheses behind. But we start putting something together in December. The calendar is presented in a rough format to the building and district level leadership teams for feedback. So we gather feedback from teachers, paras, whoever wants to be on that committee. It's left open in the buildings for us to get that feedback. That usually happens in December, January. And once it goes through that building and district level leadership, it is provided to all staff as a proposed calendar. That usually happens in January. The calendar returns to the leadership teams to consider feedback from staff, and we do get feedback. And we look at those options and look at those considerations as a part of the leadership team. From there, dependent upon the recommendations of the leadership teams, administration makes adjustments to the calendar based on that feedback and develop a final draft of the calendar, which is in January and February, and then the calendar is submitted to the school board for approval. Calendar key, which I'm going to show you, just so you know, the purple days are teacher days with no school. Comp days are parent-teacher conferences. There's 2 of them in every calendar. And that those are comp days that are for makeup for teacher conferences. And then no school. That's no school staff or students. The purple ones are teacher days where teachers are, like today is a purple day on the calendar. We'll go to the next one. This is July. This is a 6-month glance at the calendar. So if you look at August 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, those are actually 2 days for each school. The high school will have teacher workshops on the 22nd and 23rd, Monday, Tuesday. The elementary school will have teacher workshop on Tuesday, Wednesday. That crossover day in August, Dr. Gravata and I are planning on having something K-12 training for teachers. We go into the end of August is that traditional workshop week, August 29th, 30th, and 31st. And then into September, Thursday the 1st, and then you have Labor Day, and school starts on the 6th, and that starts for grades 6 through 8. On the first day, we're going to try to go back to having just our middle schoolers in the building the first day of school. Give them a chance to adjust to the building without the big kids being there. They get to see where they're going in the hallways, navigate lunches. It's just a quieter chance to get them acclimated to the building. And then on Wednesday, the 7th, is the first day of school for K through 5 and 9 through 12. The rest of September pretty much goes straight through and goes through the first part of October. You have MEA break the 20th and 21st of October. When you get into November, you have a teacher in-service day in November. You have your first comp day on the 23rd of November. That has been the day before Thanksgiving. That was a compromise that we came up with a few years ago because everyone wanted different deer hunting days off, depending on when and where they were deer hunting. And the compromise was that everyone benefited from the day before Thanksgiving. And so that has been a nice compromise that was made over the years. Into December, you can see that we would be off the 23rd and then throughout the Christmas week. And then you move into January. And the federal holiday falls on Sunday. So the federal holiday for workers is on January 2nd on Monday. And then we would be back to school on January 3rd. We have a teacher in service there on the 16th of January. In February, the President's Day weekend is the 2 orange days there, the 17th and 20th. And then the 27th of February would be the same date as what we're on today. Would be a teacher workshop day, student-led conferences. In March, we added a off day in our current calendar. We do not have a lot of breaks in these winter months. We pound straight through on a lot of it. This calendar, the goal was at the time to start after Labor Day and finish by Memorial Day. That is hard to do in 170 days. And so we are adding some opportunities for students to get a break here and there throughout the winter. To get some time off. Then we have an in-service there in March at the end on the 24th. In April, the 7th and the 10th, that is the Easter break. So there's another break in there earlier in the month of April. And then it is fast forward. We are moving to the end of the school year. The teacher workshop day, the Memorial Day is the 29th, and then we would have students 30th, 31st, and June 1st, with the final teacher workshop day on June 2nd. I don't know if there's another.
So I just want to go back one thing, Joel, please. When we talk about getting input from staff, we originally had that date for teacher in service on the Friday, the 24th on a Monday. And the request from teachers were, could you please move it to a Friday? So yeah, we can do that. The goal for this is compared to what we have currently this year. This year we have very little time off from January to June. And what we run into is a lot of teacher absences. And so to try to find subs to cover has just been very challenging, and it's very challenging for the staff that are here. So we're hoping by having a few more of these 4-day weeks, we can alleviate some of that potential. And hopefully it'll be another year where we're gonna be even further past COVID and have some normalcy too. So this calendar felt a little more comfortable.
The next slide is just, that is the calendar at a glance, and it's in the written format. If people want to see that, that's usually put on the website. Both of these calendars are usually put on the website. Next slide, same thing on that one. Our recommendation tonight is for board approval of the 2022-23 calendar as presented.
No question? How many snow days are in?
None, it's not gonna snow anymore. That's what I heard. That's,
Okay. Because I have another question. That's gonna
we are working on
piggyback.
developing what is the pattern of, we have enough hours built in where we have some ability to forgive snow days for students. Staff are gonna work their contracted hours of 183 days. That's always been the case. But we have hours built in where we don't have to necessarily make up a student snow day.
Okay, so my piggyback question is, do we, as a board, need to work on, what have we benefited from an e-learning day? Somewhere here with the last cold snap?
Well, I can tell you, potentially we could have. One thing about the e-learning is we do have to approve that every year, and the board has to
Yep.
approve doing e-learning days annually.
I think we need to have a conversation before
Yeah,
it's time. That I think it piggybacks on that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I understood 100% what the first 3 days were when we did that. Now I understand.
Yeah.
So, you know, we said when we approved it, though, we were going to see how it worked
right.
and look at it again. So
I think it'd be nice if the board, we originally had approved for this year that the first 2 days are guaranteed snow days. I would like the board to potentially reconsider, because look what happened this year. We had that closing, would have known the potential for a possible threat. Nobody could have known that was gonna happen, so that is something to consider. Questions?
Thank you, Joel.
I'll make a motion to approve the calendar as presented.
I'll second. So motion to approve next year's school calendar 2022-2023. Motion was made by board member Lang and seconded by board member Bauman. Director Hofstad, will you call roll?
Director Bauman,
Aye.
Director Hofstad, Correction, Director Hackett,
Aye.
Director Hofstad, aye. Director Lang,
Aye.
Director Roaring.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0-0. Right, curriculum review. Lunchtime.
Have another presentation. Curriculum review cycle. The curriculum review plan is something that we put into play a number of years ago, and due to budget constraints and stuff, for some reason, it was put on pause. We are looking at reinstituting the curriculum review cycle in an effort to renew and update materials in the given departments across the board K-12. So the proposed cycle for curriculum review. This year we took off because we were working on it. It was still, you could consider that this year we're still in hibernation of the curriculum review cycle. Next year, we would review and adopt curriculum for ag, art, business, tech ed, and early education. I will talk about a little bit about this as we go on. Science, and then you go to PE, health, Spanish and music, math and 25-26, social studies, and because the English department at the elementary just adopted benchmark advanced, we also renewed curriculum materials at the high school. So in effect, you would put them they were the most recent department to adopt new curriculum materials they would be at the bottom of the new cycle. The cycle is determined by administration, taking into consideration the current standards up for review. We had math up higher when you originally put this together, and now they're reviewing the math standards. And so you don't want to have just bought new curriculum and then the new math standards come out and it doesn't match what you ordered. So you give yourself time in the curriculum review cycle to have those new standards go into effect or go into law or be formally adopted. And then it gives you time to do the curriculum review and have those into consideration. So we kind of flip math and science. Science is at the tail end. They have adopted the new standards. And so we flip math and science. They were in opposite positions before, but we would be ready in 23-24 to start looking at new science curriculum because the new science standards are there. The other consideration that we really take advantage of, and it really has a difference between high school and elementary school, is at the high school, I was a social studies teacher, so hey, I don't really have to worry about it till 26, 27. I have my stuff, I'm gonna do my thing. And when it's my turn, it's my turn. At the elementary school, those teachers in those areas are teaching everything. And so if you throw math and English together back to back years while they're trying to implement benchmark advance in 1 year, and the next year you come back and plop math on top of it, that is a very heavy lift. And so in this, we've spaced it out where what you see in 2022-23 is you see 4 smaller areas they're going to review and implement and purchase curriculum somewhat independently of the other groups. And it allows them time at the elementary to do some of those heavy lifts without having to get into the new curriculum review for another area. So you have strategically placed the PE, health, Spanish, and music in between a science and math. At the elementary level, that would mean between science and math, their specials have the opportunity to review curriculum and purchase curriculum, and they're not back to back. So spacing of those core departments is a very important piece of this. Next slide. The process for curriculum review during the purchasing year, departments start looking at potential curriculum materials. I would imagine that we would start this process next fall for those areas that are on the calendar. Those departments start bringing together some possible curriculum materials that they would like to look at. The curriculum materials, just as a foreshadowing of next year, ag and tech ed look very different. They don't necessarily use a textbook, but there might be resources that they're using for specific areas of that. Early childhood might look a little different. Business, you might be looking at one real heavy area. You might maybe your accounting stuff has been outdated and you want to look at renewing some of that, and you're looking in a different area. All of those areas are a little bit more independent than if you're doing math. Your whole math department is involved in that, and they're looking at K through 12 alignment, and they're looking at vertical alignment within each building and how that fits in. So it's a little bit different, but then during the purchasing year, they look at potential stuff. The district curriculum committee, and I'll talk more about that in a second. The administration, staff, and students have the opportunity to review and provide feedback on curriculum options. The last time we did math, we did activate our district curriculum committee and had board and community and staff and student feedback on the possible curriculum options that we were looking at. Number 3, the curriculum was then approved and purchased in the spring. I would guess by the spring of next year at this time, we would be looking at finalizing those decisions for those department areas so they can get that equipment or materials, and it's available for them at the start of the next school year. And then from there, the departments begin the multi-year process of implementing it, aligning it to standards, developing learning goals. A lot of the things, what Dr. Gerbata talked about in his principal report tonight, perfectly supports the step that they're in for where they are with ELA. So next slide. Curriculum committee. I can tell from past experience, the curriculum committee was not turning people away. It was keeping people engaged and keeping them active on the committee. What started out is you started out with 10 people, and then the next meeting it was 7 people, and then it was 4 people. And but teachers are involved in it, administrators, principals and superintendent. Sometimes counselors are involved with it. We would definitely want to have student reps and board reps on it. We would definitely want community member reps and parent representatives on it. These curriculum review meetings are open, so I mean, anybody who wants to come in and take a look at the curriculum presentations. Sometimes in the big areas, they have a person from the curriculum vendor comes in and presents, here's the textbook, here's the features of it, here's the online components of it, here's the supporting materials. And then we're able to review and go through it and look at it much closer. But they come in and present those things to us, usually in a meeting. Community member reps, local business industry leaders, if we can have those people involved, and especially in a year like next year. I would love to have some industry leader reps that are talking to us about the tech ed and ag stuff that they would like to see students be exposed to. And so those community members are all, that curriculum committee gets formed, and we do need to reform the curriculum committee. And in the fall, we will be looking for people to restart that and get us started for next school year. So
Joel, how do people get involved in this? I mean, I'm a member of the public and I don't know, maybe I'm not on the website or whatever, but I would like to maybe have some input. How do I get involved?
my guess is that we would be putting stuff on the website. It would be announced. I'm guessing we would probably send out school reach calls, emails. I mean, we'll advertise it well beforehand, so people have a chance to plan for and be a part of that committee.
Even through the Royalton newsletter,
Pardon
through
me?
the Royalton community newsletter through the city, because they contacted me about.
But I live in Bowles, so
Contact
we don't
Bowles.
get that necessarily.
We don't allow those
Yeah.
people on there.
There's your
No way.
answer.
Yeah.
There's your answer.
People out there.
We have, that's in the fine print that we didn't put on.
Yeah, right. I figured that.
Next slide. And this is just a timeline for the curriculum cycle. It's that year 1, which would be, I would be telling my science people next year, start thinking about it, get it in your framework of what's going to be coming up. Pay attention to the cycle before and the timeline, so you're prepared the next year is that it's going to be your turn. The purchasing year is the events that I showed you on the previous slide. And then after that, once we have the curriculum, it really is implementing, and it is a multi-year process of, it's kind of frustrating because by the time you get comfortable with it, you're right back around to evaluating and deciding what's the next step. And so that 7-year, it's the hard part about a curriculum review cycle, and the hard part that we've done by pausing it is we had some contracts for math stuff that had online components to it that we contracted for 7 years. Well, when you pause that for 3 years, you're out now 10 years in the cycle. Some of those online components aren't available. The textbook companies, I can tell you last time when we did it in math, told us this will be the last paper textbook you ever buy. It'll all be online. That has not followed through. That has not been the case. They're still doing them. Huh?
They still gotta sell them.
Yeah, well, yeah, and so we are still, they still have math textbooks and science textbooks, and science ones are frustrating because science changes so fast every day. I mean, there are things and limitations to it. So we are really looking for what will absolutely give our students the best chance and the best access to the best quality materials that we can provide for them. And that's where we welcome input from staff and students and community members, and ask questions and dig into it. That's the goal of this thing. It really is. We want to provide what's best for our kids at all times. And I think it takes multiple eyes, and having parents involved and having community members involved and industry leaders involved in that process to make that happen. And so that timeline for that curriculum cycle is important to keep in mind as we make the commitment to this, that our goal is that we stay to it, because it is important to, we have departments that have not had a review, we paused the process before we got through the first round. So we have department areas that have not reviewed curriculum in a decade or more. So when I started in Royalton, I was born in 1976, and the textbooks we were using, and I was using with 9th grade or 7th grade social studies, the pictures in it were of like the Bee Gees dancing. I mean, that was the current events stuff in it, the Bee Gees, and I mean, they're looking at it like, wow, they have no idea what that stuff is. And so keeping your materials up to date where it's relevant to them and it's relevant to the time frame that they're living in. Having a 7th grade, I mean, how many of us would be teaching recognizing and understanding bias in the media if you weren't talking about websites and social media, and you're looking at, well, hey, they get up and read the newspaper every day. People don't read a paper newspaper anymore. I mean, sorry, that's a weekly. Everyone reads that. But to have, when your documents, your materials outdate themselves, it sets your students back, and so we want to avoid that at all costs. So, next slide. I just talked too much tonight. So, questions?
So that ag and business and tech ed, that's really heading to year 2 already.
Yes, they
We
know
need
they're on the
to
docket.
Put the foot on the accelerator to try to find some outside partners for that.
With that, I'm guessing
Them
that
are-
will start right away in the fall.
Them are the ones that really could use some outside partners with,
Yep.
This is
my
why
guess
we
is
need
that
a
we're-
sign out there, an electronic sign out at the end of the school, is to put up like, hey, we need people for this, and it's just so catchy. This is why we need a sign.
Yeah, that was brought up.
I know,
a
I
number of
keep on
years
bringing
ago,
it up.
by the way, but yeah. I don't know why it never came to fruition.
I think there's an appetite out there of industry that would like to provide some direction to some students in school. There's help wanted signs everywhere, and there's, for some of our students, that's probably an avenue they're suited for. So,
and as part of our world's best workforce, we want to be responsive to what they're looking for out of the students that are coming out of here. So.
okay, so everybody just, put the word out there that, you see somebody that's in industry or something, or somebody that's got something to add, get them here. That's on all of us.
Okay, thank you. I promise I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Strategic planning proposals. Okay, so. So just give you, so the previous board meeting, I presented to you MSBA's proposal for strategic planning. Since they did your superintendent search and participated in the evaluation process for the board, I felt that that would be a good organization to start with. And so just to recap what they came, what they're promising to do is develop foundational elements, belief statements, mission statement, vision statement, identify focus areas specific to the district needs, and then create goals and objectives related to each of those areas. It's a 12 to 14 week period. They are not available until the fall. They would do a 2 to 3 hour in-service on top of that time period, and the cost is about $10,300. The next one I looked into was innovative solutions, and this has been done. So the Walker School District is using this particular group to do their strategic planning this year. I've talked to the superintendent there several times.
He said he's used it when he was a superintendent in California and when he was superintendent either in the Wadena or Wasika, I can't recall which one, and Centennial. Basically, they would do this 2 days in September. They do you do pre-work in the spring of getting your people together. You do a 9 to 3, 2 days in a row in September. Throughout the 2 days, you engage in a series of processing tools and you take conversations as to where the district wants to go. At the end, you have institute a community-based strategic plan that will activate the future. Next slide. Outcomes, you develop a common vision and action plan. You build upon the established collaborative culture. By developing an action plan, you increase buy-in and long-term commitment to implementation strategies because the teams all have duties that they need to carry out that are participating in this committee, sub-teams, subgroups, and then a plan for sharing the vision strategies with a larger organization, including extended buy-in. Again, these are two days with large group facilitated sessions, 9 to 3. So you have to worry a little bit about getting people's commitment to that long of a day. Formal work again, September of 2022. The cost would be anywhere from $7,000 to $7,500. Lilypad Consulting Group. Grace Belvedere had done this with, does a lot of nonprofit work with a lot of nonprofits. She did this with a previous education foundation that I worked with. She would conduct listening sessions, do an environmental scan. She's into the SWOT analysis where you look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That language feels a little businessy, feels a little dated, but that's where she's at right now with her way of running strategic planning. And she'd have some prep work for participants to do and keep going. She would have a 1-day subcommittee with the board and the team, the overall arching team, and look at context and setting, opening activity, do an environmental scan, again, finalizing a SWOT, and then you brainstorm strategic goals and priorities as a team, and then conduct next steps. You'd have basically, she'd welcome everyone, do the report out and initiatives and metrics, determine the best approach, and then provide a summary report to the board for approval. She would run 6,500 at bare minimum. I don't think it would be that low. I honestly think it would come in closer to 7,500 because I think that's going to take at least 2 to 3 sessions. The next one is Watson Consulting. So this is Tom Watson. He had actually reached out to me after our board meeting. So he must have, I don't know how he was paying attention to our board meeting. I've worked with Tom Watson in 2 other districts around, he does really good transportation audits and analysis and helps districts learn how to save money through transportation. I really wasn't aware that he did strategic planning until he reached out to me. He worked with Hibbing and did the strategic planning work with Hibbing School District. I talked to the superintendent, they had a good experience with Tom, thought they'd probably bring him back if they need to do their work again or when they do a refresh of their particular strategic plan. So basically he would have a planning phase and you formulate a strategic profile and how's the district positioned, taking a look at what are the needs and opportunities, assess the community support for any kind of change or investment, and then basically what's the strategic vision and plan. Obtain approvals from the school board, of course, to proceed with any decisions on implementation of the plan, basically focusing on internal and external environment, tailored to fit the organization and culture, serves as a basis for performance measurement. His minimum cost is about $8,000, probably with any other like hotel fees if you had to stay, because he's not from here, obviously might increase that a little bit. I think Hibbing said they paid between about 8,000 and 8,500, something like that. We have what we could do as an internal option. We can go ahead and have the district leadership team go ahead and be the facilitators of this work, of course, incorporating multiple members of the community, as well as students and teachers absolutely have to be a part of the work. We'd review that mission, vision, and belief statements, and I would use a World Cafe model. That's the one I'm familiar with and feel comfortable with, a really way to engage people into conversation. And basically, we would need to set about 3 to 5 goals. Always keeping in mind the world's best workforce goals is a big part of that strategic plan. We were mandated to have those. So how do we add additional goals that complement that and that fit our particular district in our where we are now? Keep going. I would bet this is 4 to 5 meetings. I would say about 2 hours each, 1.5 hours to 2 hours. I don't like to keep people much longer than 2 hours. I feel they get restless, and especially I would recommend we do them at night. We might be able to do it Saturday if people would want to come on a Saturday. You don't want to go much longer than 2 hours at night, in my opinion. People are tired, they worked all day. So you want their best thinking. Basically, I guess we do this spring into summer. It might go into summer. Obviously, we wouldn't go into July. Nobody wants to do this work in July, probably, but then get a draft strategic plan presented to the school board through a couple of different work sessions. The school board has even more ample time as a group to make suggestions and changes and edits, and can even take it back to the overall committee saying the board charged us to do a little more work. We come back. And then ultimately you would approve it at a regular meeting. I think if we do this internally, we can kind of gauge that, how long this takes. I don't think this has to be a hurry. We want to do something that's right. So I foresee this as going spring into summer and potentially into the fall for final approval, maybe a work session in August, September, something, and then finally have approval early fall. Estimated cost is basically the leadership time to plan for meetings, the review and synthesize information from meetings. As you know, you have to, when you think about World Cafe, they call it harvesting of information. And then just the time for attending meetings. So basically, you have 5 different options presented to you. You see the costs at the very, very low range of 6,500, which I still think would probably be hard pressed to see that happen at 6,500 to anywhere over 10,000. I can tell you, I've reached out to another school district as well that spent double what MSBA is charging for strategic planning work, and they're going to entertain that firm again to come back and help do a refresh with them. So just so you know, I've been reaching out, talking to different districts. And so, and the only other thing to consider is internal facilitators. We can do this process and do it the way we want. Just know that we want to ensure that it's a community plan. It's not the superintendent's plan. And the board approves it, and the board has to feel good about the whole process to ensure that what you're looking at is up to what you can feel comfortable with. So I know that our chair is not here tonight, so I'm not sure if the board wants to approve this tonight in his absence, or if you want to wait and consult, think about this and process it, and then come back in March and approve it. I don't know.
Personally, I'd like to wait. Just give me a little time to digest this information, see what our options actually are as you present it, and then go from there. That's a lot of information right now, and want to do the right thing for our community. I really do. I really want to see the community members.
Well, I'll tell you what I see out of it. So if you hire a firm, they're gonna have all the new bells and whistles with the Survey Monkeys and all their little things. But it's gonna be the same people answering the same survey questions that we had 4 or 5 years ago. Somehow, if we could do this in-house and get enough outside people to make it a true community thing, and that's on us to get people here. You know, that and you know, Survey Monkeys are great, but you harvest the data and then do what with it? A lot of times you look at it and you see that the committee is a smaller group, and they see the things that they like, and they just glance over the things that they don't like. And I'd really like to see more input from the community on it. I really would. So I don't know how that happens, but I'm okay with tabling this until we have a full board.
The other thing I'd like to add to all of this is one thing I think we should make sure, whatever happens, however this goes, we have to have, I've been in districts where all of a sudden you have a 4-page document that has all of these goals and all these different strategies, and it ends up being so overwhelming for the team that it doesn't matter who put it together, it's gonna sit on a shelf and not get done because it's so complicated. Yes, and I really hope that our end product here is 3 to 5 goals that are actionable over the course of 3 to 5 years that really are meaningful for our students, and really meaningful for our staff and families. So I think if we can make that, keep that at our forefront of here's what our goal, our end game is, this is what our goal is, something that's realistic, that we can all have buy-in and have that be our true belief, you know, that this is who we are and this is where we want to be and this is how we see ourselves in the future.
So then we're going to wait until we have a full board to make the decision.
I would prefer that.
Thank you.
Do you have to make a motion to do that?
No.
No, because we don't have anything.
All right.
We just discussed it. Does anybody have any questions? Anything else? Any other discussion?
Do you have a slim down option?
Oh, thank you. No, I did ask, I said, would it be possible, I said, if we were to look at this more as a refresh, since we have some basic tenets there, the mission, vision, and some belief statements online, and she said no, because she didn't help, MSBA didn't help design the first one, so they didn't feel comfortable coming in and doing a refresh, and so they felt strongly that their model was the way they wanted to do it with fidelity, and so that's why I just brought a recap of what they had said.
Okay. And were they able to be on site if we did go that route?
Thank you for that. No, they said too, it would be virtual, and I
Virtual,
did
even with
mention
the
that.
community.
Right. Yes.
Yep, moving on to policy reading. First policy readings, number 525, violence prevention. Second policy readings were number 412, expense reimbursement. Questions, discussion? Okay, upcoming meeting schedule. Finance meeting, now this is going to be Wednesday, correct? The 15th?
So they got
Okay.
time to get their financials finished. for the
Perfect.
month.
Okay, so
Yeah.
finance meeting will now be Wednesday, March 15th at 12:00 PM. Then Wednesday, March 9th at 9:00 AM is the policy meeting. Monday, March 14th at 6 PM is our work session. And then Monday, March 28th at 6 PM is the regular board meeting. So now we are going to close the meeting for labor negotiation strategies as permitted by Minnesota statute, section 13D.03.
I'll move to close meeting.
No second.
So motion to close regular meeting by Director Hackett
7:48.
at 7:48 PM. Motion was made by Board Member Hackett and seconded by Board Member Lane. Director Hofstad, can you call roll?
Director Bauman,
Aye.
Director Hackett,
Aye.
Director Hofstad, aye. Director Lang,
Aye.
Director Roaring,
Motion passes 5-0. We will meet here back here at
Thanks for coming.
7 minutes, good enough? Okay, 7:55, we will meet back.